59J, neck on 9. Let's go. Yeah.
I'm sideways in a bucket ducking 5-0. Homie, are you there?
Yo, what's good with everybody, man? I hope everybody's having a productive day, feeling blessed, and like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. So here's part 2 on this crazy story that I've been talking about lately. When you don't pay the Mexican mafia tax, so you die. So they send foot soldiers to take your life away. And it's a very unfortunate circumstance. As I continue to read the paperwork, there's multiple robberies, multiple incidences that occurred that made one individual who got put on a green light take out 4 people just to save his own butt and save his own career and to be in good standings with the Mexican mafia. It's crazy how far people will go just to save their own self. So let's get into the video. With that being said, hit that subscribe button, hit that like, always leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Check the links in the description for my Apple and Spotify music. Go ahead and run my streams up. And you can check out my playlist section on my YouTube channel and check out my music right there. Thank you guys for you guys' time. Most important, thank you guys for you guys' support. So you had this guy from Eastside Wilmas, Ruben Gomez, was about to terrorize the community on the basis that, he became a drug dealer. He wasn't a very good drug dealer. And what I mean by that is, he sold dope because he was supplied with dope on somebody else's behalf to make them money. But he's a dope fiend. He was a drug addict. So most of the time what he did with his extra income that he accumulated himself or a little extra dope that he was left with, it either went up to his nose or up his veins. And that's the cool part about this story is that you have a Mexican mafia foot soldier who's been a Mexican mafia foot soldier for a very long time, from one of the dangerous cities that I've ever heard of, which is Wilmington, California. And everybody knows about Eastside Wilmas, Westside Wilmas, how many Mexican mafia members come from that town. So this dude's a dangerous individual. And what's more dangerous about this person is that, not only is he a killer, not only is he a foot soldier, not only is he connected to one of the biggest powerful organizations known to California prison systems, but he's also a drug addict. And how many of us have heard stories about, drug addicts and, knocks, base heads, that they'll kill for their high. They'll rob, steal, they'll do anything for their high. So he's addicted, and not only is he addicted, being involved in the drug game, he's also in debt to the Mexican mafia. See, for a very long time, he used to put in work for the Mexican mafia until they found out that he got into the drug game. And now that he's involved in a drug game and he's blowing all his extra income, his 10% tax is going to his vein, the Mexican mafia frowned upon that. Why? Because they don't care about the history of what he's done for them. All the people he's probably knocked down and he's robbed, he's beat up, he's taxed, all the people he stabbed, the people he put in work on, the people he politicked on while he was in prison. He probably can account for a lot of things that he's done for this organization. But the moment that, he started making a little bit of money, but that money just happened to go to his veins and not their books or not their bank accounts, they overlooked everything that this dude done for them because they wanted that 10% tax. But see, regardless of these irrelevant rules and policies that these prison organizations imply on their own people, he did what he had to do to avoid paying that 10% tax because, in all honesty, it was more important that that 10% tax go to his vein and go to his mentality and go to his high than to pay these dudes off and keep these dudes content and out of his business. So when he was in prison, he got put on the green light. The paperwork right here you see across the screen. This was a confiscated note that was being circulated by the Sureño faction on behalf of the Mexican mafia that had his name written all over it. They wanted this dude knocked down because he was out there selling dope and making a little bit of money and not funding their organization. So he got put on bad standings. And we all know what the green light consists of and what you can get put green lighted on. I think both organizations operate a little different. I think they all do. I think every one of them, you can get put on the green light for any situation. And it was crazy for a very long time, since 2000, when I finally got involved in Norteño politics all the way up into my removal. I seen a lot of Norteños get put on that green light list. In reality, the green light list is a Mexican mafia term. The NF used something totally different. They call it the BNL, bad news list. Same difference. Or the NGN list, which is Norteños that had status that fell out of grace, fell out of favor, got deemed no good. They became a bigger priority than the bad news list. Bad news list is dudes that locked it up, dudes that told, dudes that did this, dudes that got removed. They don't perceive this list as a bad like a priority that these dudes are dangerous. You know, hit them with immediate threat every time you see them. Nah, man, if they come across your path, they come across your way. Oh man, he's right here on this list. All right, we'll get him when we get him. But the NGN list is like these dudes had status. These dudes got mouthpiece. See, that's a bigger threat when you have a norteño who's well educated, who's been indoctrinated by the bylaws, who knows certain people, who knows certain situations, who have a little bit more inside information on this prison, that person, his secretary, where his bank account's at, where his family live. Because once you get involved in Nuestra Raza, Northern Structure, there's a little bit, you're entitled to know a little bit more information about certain people, and you're working with different individuals who are much more powerful in the NF organization. And then obviously, you know, the NF has their own list, and that's just, you know, top of the line priority, man. That's Gordon Ramsay type food right there. They want them down ASAP. For years, when you landed on the BNL list, the NGN list, or the NF's list, you know, you weren't going to pay your way out of that. You weren't going to get off that list. But as you can see, 2024, it's a hell of a lot easier to make sure your name don't even get placed on that list in the first place. You know, because all these organizations incorporated the fine. You know, I'd rather just fine you $10,000 and you could pay me in increments of, you know, $350 a month, $250 a month until it's paid off. But I'm going to threaten you every chance I get. Your name will get placed on this list, bro, if you don't pay that money. On the streets, you have physical discipline coming back, where a bunch of street regiments and regiment commanders will just sit there and sock you up, beat you up to a bloody pulp, and then still make you pay a fine if you want to be in good standings. And a lot of people take those situations to heart because nobody wants to run around avoiding gunshots, avoiding bullets, worried about if this man's going to stab me at this party or at this local gas station or at this grocery store. Nobody wants to live in a state of fear. Nobody wants to live with having to look over their shoulder every day. And like I said, this new generation, these new organizations, these new members, you can end up on that BNL list, that NGN list, that Greenlight list, and buy your way back. It's called the reentry program. Yeah, the NF didn't want me talking about it, but it does exist. It's called the reentry program. I've seen a lot of dropouts go back from that list, pay their way back, just so they don't have to live in that state of fear no more. They don't want to get involved in the politics. They don't want to start functioning with the regiment. They don't want to start writing these carnales, but they'll pay that monthly fee, go to work, pay that monthly fee. That way they can go out to the streets, still wear the red or still wear the blue, claim the identity of a norteño or a sureño or a skinhead, but they're just keeping it like that, very simple, so they ain't got to live in fear no more. But that concept of self-preservation, paying these fees, paying these fines, getting back in good graces, you know, all these organizations seen that like, man, we can get more money out of our people than we have been, than the 10% sale tax or that 10% contribution to the cause. As long as we continue to make them live in fear. As long as we continue to tell them, bro, you can end up on this list and be greenlighted and your life would be a living hell. But if you don't want that, make sure my books are stacked. Make sure this letter goes that way. Make sure this gets dropped off at this location. Make sure you answer to me every time on my beck and call. That's how they had people living. And that's how they had Ruben Gomez living. Because when he paroled, he already knew about that green light. Now, why they didn't hit him when he was in the penal system, you know, it wasn't described in the transcripts. So he comes home and he avoids any debt collector, any Sureño faction, and any Mexican mafia member and their soldiers, because he wants to get taken off this green light list. And, you know, you can get put on the green light list from the Mexican mafia for a lot of reasons. Being an informant, he don't like you. Somebody else paid him another Mexican mafia member to have you green lighted. Somebody smutted you up and they didn't do their proper investigations. You name it, or not paying the tax. You name it. You can get placed on that list. And once you're there, everybody becomes fully activated to take your life. So he comes out with the intentions like, man, I got to gather up all this money and pay it back, a substantial amount of money. But see, when it comes to these organizations, they're going to preach it a lot. They won't say it out loud, but it doesn't exist. And that's probably one of the biggest bold-faced lies you'll ever hear. Nothing's fair and there's no mercy when it comes to these organizations. Because we're talking about a dude who's put in work for these guys for years. Even in the penal system, he did a lot for these dudes for years. But the moment that their books look a little short, or there was no money going their direction on his behalf, hey man, put him on that list, bro. Let's give him an eye-opener, a rude awakening. Let's blast them. So there is no such thing as fair and mercy when it comes to these organizations. They don't care. They don't care what you do for them, how long you've been doing it for them. The basis of these organizations is always going to be capitalism, money. That's what they want. It's greed. So the dude comes out of jail and he's avoiding everybody. And he's trying to come up with a scheme to how he's going to pay these guys back. So what's he good at? Robbery. Who isn't? I rob people. Anybody can rob somebody. What do dope fiends and drug addicts do the best to fulfill that high, to get that high back? Steal, rob. It's the easiest form of crime that you can do to, to support your drug habit. So he sees this one guy. It was on May 25th, 1997, the first victim, the first robbery. And he was a 50-year-old man who was a quality control engineer out of Orange County. And he's seen the guy, man. That just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, but the right time when it comes to Rumi Gomez, because he's seen that this dude had a gold Rolex sitting on his wrist, gold chains everywhere. A dude looked well-dressed. He was portraying that he was successful, a person, but in reality, he really wasn't. That's just how he wanted the society to perceive him. And he had a large knot, a large amount of money in his pocket. So dude just sees all that and he's like, this is it right here, man. It's the perfect come up. I can collect all that jewelry, strip him of that wad of money. I can get high and, pay a little percentage off so I can keep him, at a distance to keep him calm, keep him cool. So he sees all this and thinks to himself, would be the good come up, would be the proper come up. And what happens is he finds the window of opportunity to rob this dude, stabs him right dead in the face and throws him in the back of the trunk and strips him of all his jewelry, takes the money out of his pocket. So according to the court proceedings and the court documents, dude had, a fair amount of money. Not a lot of money. Dude wasn't balling out of control, but he had a little something where a couple $100 could have went that dude's direction. Hey man, calm down, man. Slow your roll, man. Hold your horses real quick, man. Here's the money's on its way. Just give me some time. And then you can even use a little bit of extra of that money and feed your veins and be that knock that you are while you're selling the jewelry. There was enough in that man's pockets to kind of like seal the deal. But instead, he already stabbed dude in the face and threw him in the trunk of the car. So now that's kidnapping. And he's driving around with the victim's body in the back of the car while he's trying to sell the jewelry. But to no avail, because they find out on the streets that this jewelry is fake. This is a fake Rolex, fake gold chain, fake rings. Everything about the man's accessories, his jewelry, was all fake. How was he supposed to know that the jewelry was fake? So obviously, he's irritated and frustrated. So he's thinking of the next best thing, because the dude had money in his pocket, stripped him of everything, of his wallet or whatever his items were that he was in possession of, and had a card that needed a PIN number. So he pulls over, opens the trunk, tortures the dude in the back of the trunk to get the man's PIN number. Well, he gets here, drives that ATM, and somehow, some way, either the PIN number didn't work or the ATM wasn't cooperative. And that's what sealed that dude's fate. He didn't know what to do. He wasn't getting no money. He thought maybe dude was lying to him. Maybe dude wasn't lying to him. Maybe dude gave him a PIN number. There was no money in that account. Or maybe the ATM was out of money. There could have been a lot of scenarios about this ATM and why it was uncooperative in this situation, in this robbery. And dude was already damn near frustrated to the brink of, I'm going to take this dude's life if he keeps playing me. Well, he foul played. Pulled the dude out of the trunk of the car, shot him multiple times, threw his body on the side of the road, and just drove off. Very disgusting that we're talking about a man who had a career, quality control engineer. I don't know what that is in particular, but, I'm pretty sure engineering is a very good field of choice and, very lucrative. And, I understand they build stuff, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe he checks what gets built. Either way, man, we're talking about a dude that, even though he had fake jewelry, which is not a problem, why wear real jewelry in public knowing that the possibilities of somebody trying to rob you could happen? I'd rather somebody rob me from my fake jewelry and just say, hey, man, you think you came up, but I got the real deal at home sitting on my dresser when I really want to come out and, stun on everybody. But we're talking about a guy who just, wore regular jewelry, just happened to be fake, but it caught the attention of a drug dealer, a drug addict / Mexican mafia soldier who was in bad standings, who was in desperation, in desperate need to save his own ass, and was out there preying on people looking for primary targets, quick come-ups, quick schemes. This victim was not at fault for nothing, because just because he wore fake jewelry, wasn't there with the intentions to attract other people's attention. Just because he had a lot of money in his pocket shouldn't have made him a priority and a target for somebody else. The man was just living a normal life, working a hard job, had a good career. And he got targeted for this robbery because we got one dude who's just a straight dope fiend working for other dope fiends that want his money so they can get high as well. So they can have money on their books to say they're that much more powerful, that they're that much more rich. A couple $1,000s on their books makes them, prison rich in jail, makes them very popular, makes them very powerful. and literally pressured this guy into believing that he could lose his own life if he don't pay this 10% tax, and set this man on a rampage, on a violent rampage to take people's lives in the process just to save his own career. Because this is one of many robberies that he commits during this whole thing, in which he was convicted of and sentenced to death on death row. And that's the ugly face of these organizations that, a lot of us talk about, is that look at the kind of situations they can place you in, put you in that state of fear. I mean, look at how much criticism I get for talking about these organizations when I talk about the AB, the NF, or the Mexican Mafia, or the MS-13, or whoever I talk about. Even the SNY gangs target me now. These men are so powerful with their influence that their influence got money on their books, money in their wife's bank accounts. They got all the canteen they want in the world. They can get a cell phone every now and then. What they live for, the power that they live for, is very limited. But yet it's so glorified because who these people are and what these people do, what they're capable of, how many people they stabbed in the cell, who they had stab people for them. All that glorification, if you think about it, is invaluable. It values to nothing. These guys are really convinced in their head that they're that powerful. Because trust me, I used to be convinced about that power. I used to thirst for that power. I used to strive for that power. I wanted that power so bad. But just because you're a powerful person with a powerful voice and powerful influence in a cell, you're still locked up in a cell for the rest of your life. It looks very dangerous when we describe the damage that is done to society, these gangs and these dudes that continue to catch life sentences on their behalf, all these people that are dying on their behalf. That power eventually will come to an end, or will come to a halt, or eventually will be challenged by another Mexican Mafia member, or another NF member, or another Norteño who decides to rebel and create another SNY gang and just go to the streets and influence a lot of members who don't give a damn about the prison politics. It's a recycling door. But it's just an unfortunate circumstance that in this particular case, because one person wanted to save his own career just to look good to the organization he used to work for, the whole time, all because he wanted to feed his veins. So you got people dying out here because of one person wants to feed his veins instead of answering to his bosses. So stay tuned for part 3. So with that being said, like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. Peace.